All right, so this is the Drupal usability meeting for 2019, February 12th. And we have a lot of topics for today. Angie, do you have availability to start?
Sure, let's do that. Share that. Apologize if you can hear the iPad in the background there. We had a snow day in Vancouver, BC today, so get my little one with me. Okay, well, actually, this is jumping you right into the thing. So that the issue in question is, let's see if I can find it. Nope. Gabor, do you know the issue that this stems from? The one about logging. Here we go. Yeah.
3024296.
So the backstory here is, Drupal 9, we hope will be out around this time next year. And in order to prepare for Drupal 9 is basically going to be Drupal 8 with all the backward compatibility layers removed. And so that's currently a work in progress. But in order for all the modules to work with Drupal 9 seamlessly, all the current Drupal modules to work seamlessly, they all need to make sure they're not using any of the deprecated APIs. And so we have been discussing in this issue a bunch of different options for notifying people about the fact that they are using deprecated code and what they can do about it and this kind of thing. So there's a lot of really in-depth, dense information in this. It's a really good thread to look at. What I'm going to show, like, very loosely using the word mockups here because it's me. And I don't have a shred of design talent, but mockups for a site builder tool or a site owner tool to kind of like tell you sort of graphically the same information. And there's some tricky nuances here because, what this is kind of coming from Dries. Dries really wants to be able to show something like this in at DrupalCon to kind of reassure people who are very nervous about Drupal 9, understandably, because they've been through Drupal 5 to 6 and 6 to 7 to 7 to 8, to try to reassure them that it's not going to be as big of a deal. But in order for it not to be as big of a deal, we really need something to help both the developers and the site owners to know that. So what this tool is proposing is a dashboard, which will scan both your custom code and your contributed code. There's no point in scanning core, really, because core will either fix itself or just say, well, whoops, we're going to deprecate that in Drupal 10 instead. But these are the things that the person can actually conceivably do something about. So what it does, here I'll do the custom code part, is it, in the background we'll run PHP scan, which is like a static code analysis tool on all of your projects. It comes up with a report that says, I found 3 projects with 27 known issues or whatever with Drupal 9 compatibility. And then there's, a list of how many errors from each module. And then you can view a log, and that would take you to something kind of similar to what Gabor shows here, where you'd see, this is the error and what line number it's on and like that kind of stuff. I didn't mock that up yet. And then conversely, here's the 7 projects that had no known issues with Drupal 9 compatibility. And the known issues language is important because static code analysis tools can only go so far. Like, they can't detect that you're using a runtime service in an incorrect manner, or that you've passed a parameter that is deprecated now to a function. Like, it can't pick stuff like that up. It can only pick up, the function Drupal set message isn't used anymore, so let's flag that kind of stuff. And so that's one of the things that we can say here. And then we do a same scan with contributed code. Contributed code is a little bit different because probably what you want to do in the event that your thing is showing errors is download the latest release. It's never a bad idea. So this is almost like a update status kind of view where it says, hey, you're using web form, blah, blah, blah. There's a better release. Go download that and try it. Maybe rules doesn't have a newer release on it, so it says already up to date, and, feeds. I don't know. I'm just kind of playing around with this thing. Like what we would love to do is, you know, have a big green checkbox here that says, yay, you're ready for Drupal 9, but we really don't know that you are ready for Drupal 9. But what we can say is that we didn't detect any known issues at Drupal 9, and that's probably about as good as we can do. So that's kind of what we were thinking here. And so I was wondering if I could take a couple of minutes to just get some feedback on this. These are just like Google like drawing symbols. They would be whatever the error and the like the good thing is in like the status page. So ignore the symbols. That's not an actual spec. But the rest of it, basically, it's more about like the stuff that's here. Does it look like the right stuff to be here? Do you have other feedback? That kind of stuff. So thoughts?
I mean, for like web forms listed here. So for me, I need something like this on Drupal.org on the web form project page, because then it gives people a burn down list to help. I have people helping me out with deprecated functions and behaviors. The one problem is until 9 is tagged, some of these we can't fix because then we're going to have different branches running around. And have this list on like a report that shows all the errors, like the logged errors on Drupal.org, is more useful. I guess I'm wondering, like, is this a module built into core, or could this be decoupled from, could it just be a PHP library that just analyzes?
Yeah, the idea is this would be probably a contributed module, because we're not realistic. We're not going to get anything else in core that's starting from mockups by March 11th, because that's the cutoff for 8.7. It could be in core for 8.8, but the thinking we were thinking is this would be a contributed project to start with. There already is a Gabor, do you have the link handy for? Maybe I can stop sharing. Can you show off Matt Glayman's cool stuff?
Yeah, there's so Matt Glayman worked on PHP stan integration. Let me pull this up here. So over December, I guess he wrote a bunch of integration thingies with PHP stan, and that you can just, if you have Composer, you can use his tool, and it reports stuff like this. So it says call to deprecated function, blah 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 blah. So if you have access to your code base, you can run it on your code base. It's not really feasible to run it all at once on your code base, but per project it could be run, and they're looking at possibly integrating this on Drupal.org for projects. That would be nice. And he's started to set it up on the top 100 contrib projects, but I think it failed on various things, especially Acquia connector not being compatible enough with certain things. But this is the core run that he has, and even profiles are incompatible now, but they used to be compatible. But you can go into like the modules 1, and then you can look at all the reports for the first batch of core modules that he ran, and this is like what happens in the deprecated stuff in action module, etc. So this is the quote-unquote UI of the tool, right? And I think what Angie was looking at is to have a report that's consumable for site owners to have some kind of sense of how much work they need to do to make their sites Drupal 9 ready.
But what you're showing, Gabor, what you're showing makes more sense to me. Let's go on this assumption that anyone who has custom code is using Composer. I mean, I'm like, when we're at Drupal 9 now, so we're talking a year from now, like we're pushing people. You have custom code, you should be using Composer. Composer is going to generate a report like this for you. That seems more useful for a lot of people. Like the report in Drupal is who's that report for? I'm not trying to. I think this report's extremely important. The report in Drupal, who is it for? Because the person who wrote custom code needs this. they need a simple text file. I mean, even this is easier to work with because you can burn down, make comments, and kind of work with it easier.
So to answer your question, the report I was showing a mock-up for is for the person who's going to hire you or whoever to fix the problem. So it's the person who controls the budgets, the person who controls the timelines of when a site's going to do their upgrade, that kind of thing. But not ideally that view log thing would drill down into something that looks more or less like that, within like a Drupal table or something. But that report is for someone who's like a decision maker at a business level who needs to understand, you know, when it's appropriate to move to Drupal 9, how much work is there to do, that kind of stuff. It's trying to kind of ascertain that at a glance. It's explicitly not for, although it could also be, if the view log looks more or less like the PHP stan output, it is not really for developers, because the thinking was developers would just run PHP stan directly and then get notification in the command line and not even have to go to a user interface for this. You could argue that that's not an audience we care about. Dries pointed out in the issue, what did he say? He felt strongly that there were two audiences that need this information. One is you, like literally you, Jacob.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, you know, the person who last hired you to work on a freelance project or whatever. They need it. So when they're trying to figure out their, you know, quarterly or yearly budgets for 2020, that has to include a Drupal 9 upgrade at some point. They have any idea like how much work that's going to be. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I see it a much higher. If you're trying to reach the site owners and say something to them about the status of their, I'm going to say it very directly, the status of their free open source modules that may or may not be getting upgraded to Drupal 9.x. It's more than just the deprecated functions. Is the module maintained? When was the last release? Like, I'm just throwing out there, telling them how many deprecated functions is a minor thing. It's like, is it ready from their perspective? Is it ready for Drupal 9? Is there someone I'm just giving you the bigger questions. Is someone maintaining it? When was the last release? Are there recent commits? Is there a pathway for this module to be upgraded? Is there a ticket on Drupal.org that's being, like how we created those upgrade your module to Drupal 8 tickets, the tracker?
Yep.
That's huge for site owners. Those tickets.
That's huge for site owners. That is fucking unwieldy for site owners to figure out.
What's going on in those tickets? I know.
Yeah.
Unless we add better metadata.
A little bit simpler than that, which is just in the actual site that they own, and they download a module and ta-da, you know, kind of. But yeah, and to your point, the Drupal.org integration would be huge. It's just we have monthly calls with the Drupal Association. We pointed out to them that something like this would be amazing. They're very enthusiastic about it, but they also have like 18 tons of work in front of them with like GitLab and all this other stuff. So like, I just don't know when or if they're going to get to integrating this on Drupal.org. That's why we're trying to kind of walk or crawl even before we can run. So like the idea that now there's a blog post out there that you could read as a developer and get a tool chain set up and start working on your problems now is kind of the crawling step, you know, and then like putting some official page on Drupal.org about Drupal 9 readiness for developers or something like that, that points off to all this information. That'd be kind of like a, you know, crawling and not bumping your head on the table, you know. And, ideally there'd be like a little marker on the project pages that would inform both developers and site builders that, hey, this module has 37 known issues with Drupal 9. View a report. Like that would be super awesome. Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. We're just trying to like kind of work within the concepts of like, we don't have any control over the DA's resources and what they're spending their time on. And it feels like it's time sensitive. Like we really only have a year to remove all of this deprecated stuff if we're going to keep our promise that we made of like Drupal 9's upgrade being less heinous than any other release previous. So.
Okay. I mean, one workaround for the DA issue, and I really understand, like getting the DA, they don't have the resources. I mean, we can add metadata to the composer file for all modules. Like that, you can just put a spec out there of where that might help with this integration of how do you get module maintainers to kind of report the status of their module in terms of where it's at with the upgrade. You can add metadata. They can manually add the metadata to composer. We can also probably add, like DA could.
Yeah, what kind of metadata would this be?
How to help, here's the list, here's, you know, here's where the work's being done, who's doing the work, how to, you know, I don't know, that's getting too into the weeds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, if I, like, my friend Joe runs the Vancouver Pride Society website. It's on Drupal 7, so it's kind of irrelevant, but at some point that will need to move to Drupal 9 also. And she is very non-technical, like absolutely non-technical. But we'll need to figure out, you know, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just someone like that wouldn't even use a screen like this. They just be like, somehow know that there's a Drupal 9 out there somehow, and then, you know to hire someone like you to spec it out, and then someone like you would run the developer tool, wouldn't need this screen at all. I don't know.
Yeah, but wouldn't that person just want to know, is the module ready? How do I find the ticket to know when it will be ready? Like, I'm just like, they don't, I mean, that, and for modules, we have to tag 9.x branches, right? Yeah.
Well, the current, Gabor, you, I guess, would be able to know this, but I thought that what we were going for there is that Drupal 8 modules will still run in Drupal 9. As long as they don't have deprecated function calls. Is that correct, Gabor?
Yeah, we don't have a definite answer to that yet, but theoretically it will be possible to run Drupal 8 modules on Drupal 9 as long as you don't use deprecated stuff. So you don't necessarily need to have a different branch of your module.
Wow. I just know with some of the deprecated functions, I don't see that possible. Like, there's services that are being injected that are removed where the entire the constructor of the class needs to completely change. So there's no backwards compatibility between the 8 and 9 version unless we don't remove. I'm just throwing out, like, I always imagined we were going to have to, you know, tag 9.x releases.
You can tag the 9, yeah. So it depends on the complexity of your project, obviously. Nobody stops you from taking a different version for Drupal 9.
So you could take 8.x modules and drop it in and see if it works.
Yeah, also generally, so because we are building 9.x with deprecations, the idea is that people follow the deprecations so they don't need to do all the work at once at the last minute, right?
Yeah.
And this tool aims to help with speeding that up instead of loading that until the end.
And the bottom line is we do need something, because even if all of the contributed module authors in the world banded together and got rid of all of their deprecated code at once, you still, every site pretty much has custom code, and nobody is going to update that for them. So they still need some way, which is why the UI focuses on custom code first and then contrib code as a secondary thing. It's a fair point that maybe for contributed code, we don't bother showing the numbers of errors or any of that at all. We just link them to the contrib tracker issue, and ta-da, you know, maybe that's what we do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I see the custom code. I see the need. Even, yeah.
Isn't it when you have custom code, then you probably have someone to fix it too?
No, not necessarily. I mean, a lot of times you have a budget, you hire a developer to make your site, the developer makes the site, and then the developer goes off to go make other sites, and you maintain your site for like 3 years, just doing basic security updates and stuff. And then ta-da, now you have to upgrade to Drupal 9. So you need to go track down your developer, except your developer decided they don't want to be in tech anymore. So now they're a basket weaver in Tahiti, and now you need to go find a different, like, no. Large organizations will employ developers on staff 24/7, and then they would be able to do stuff like this. But the vast majority of Drupal sites are set it and forget it. So someone does a bunch of work up front to like make the site, and then it sits out there just being Drupal-y. So, I mean, you can look, if you want validation of this, you can go to like the usage numbers for the Drupal project, and it's the vast majority of them are not on the latest version. Let's just put it that way. So,
yeah, but probably having this tracker thing or this code update tool doesn't help them at all.
yeah, it wouldn't help anyone. Well, if it's in contrib, it definitely won't help anyone until they manually download it and enable it. So that's the first thing.
But also as a site owner, if you don't have somebody to fix all the things that are mentioned by the tool,
yeah,
you're still screwed.
Yeah, it really only helps in that when you're trying to size it out in t-shirt sizes and be able to know if it's is this a small, medium, large, or extra large problem, you know, with our Drupal 9 compatibility. And even then that's hard if you like, because just because it says 7,825 errors, if it's all a matter of copy, you know, find and replace Drupal set message to something else, then that's super easy to solve. If it's swapping out a constructible whatever Jacob said, then that's obviously going to be much harder. So,
but still, to rename the Drupal set message thing, if you're just a regular site owner who doesn't code, you probably wouldn't want to touch that.
Yeah. A developer is definitely going to need to fix the code. There's no question about that. But the idea is like this would bubble up a view of the remaining work to a level that someone non-technical could somewhat wrap their head around it, maybe.
No, there's a lot of potential here. I mean, that then someone who doesn't have a developer having this report, and then some firm's going to step up and like how people are adding support for Drupal 6 will say, we'll upgrade your modules, because it's a pretty easy job to go through these deprecated functions.
As a developer, I would install this tool. Like when I get that call from the person who's developing now lives in Tahiti and is a basket weaver, and they're like, hey, can you help me upgrade my site to Drupal 9? The first thing I would do would be run this tool. And I'd be like, okay, it looks like you're using mainly top 100 modules. Those are in pretty good shape. You've got this weird bibliography podcast module that's going to require some work. Oh, and it looks like you've just got a custom theme. So yeah, that'll be like not that much hard. Or conversely, it looks like you installed the views module and otherwise you have completely created your own custom everything else. So this is going to be a 9-month project, you know what I mean, or whatever. It's just like getting an overview like that, I think, is helpful. It's just a question of if it's surfacing the right things and not kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in the right, this is the right direction. If it was possible, it's a resource issue of like, if you can give people better scope of how bad it is, because like Drupal set message is a great example already. That deprecation we could rank in story points as a 1. It's really easy for someone to fix that. Like that's a ridiculously simple one to get in there and fix. And then there's other ones. And if you have 100 of those Drupal set messages, it's no big deal. That's a global search and replace. But then other ones have different, you know, I'm just curious, like that would be like a site owner would love that. You have deprecated functions. There's only 5 things that need to be fixed. These are the 5 deprecated messages that you're seeing throughout all your modules. Not here's, you know, your 40 modules and you've got 400 possible. Do you like a more diagnostic approach?
Yeah, we could do it like that. Like Gabor's mock in that issue was originally like that. It was like kind of grouping it by how many times an error message had shown up. I was thinking though that for site owners, site builders, anybody who's not a coder, basically, their quote unquote interface through Drupal is through modules. Like they rush DL a module. When they create a module, it goes in a folder with a module name. So from that point of view, I thought grouping it by module would be more intuitive for that audience, versus grouping it by error message frequency is much more intuitive for a developer audience.
It'll get great estimates. That's both views. Both, you know, both the site owner understands, okay, I've got these modules, and the developer going in knows what's going on.
Yep. Yep.
And they'll be able to fix it. You'll get
it sounds like you're advocating that we need both. Yeah. So for developers, error level frequency.
I definitely, when people diagnose issues and do deprecate, they look for the number. Yeah, it's always how many times is this being used and how easy is it to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
And are we? Yeah.
I want to be sensitive to the time because we're having
let's move on. Yeah.
a lot of things. This is all really great feedback, though. I really appreciate it. Any other feedback that I can take to round 2 of this? I'm taking notes in the sidebar, so if I missed any important points, just feel free to add them in. Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. So it sounds like, yeah, this was be cool, but still needs work, which is totally fair. So I will try to spiffy it up before the next meeting. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I think Sean was next on the call. To go next.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it short. I think you all can see my screen. So we have this issue for the media library. That's issue number 3023802. And the goal of this issue is to show the media ad form directly when you open the media library. So I have this ready right now. So when you open the media library from a widget, it should directly show you the ad form for this specific media type. So the allowed types here are just images, and for files, it's a lot more. So there was some feedback in this issue. Let me scroll down. That's here. Okay. So Laurie said, media entities selected prior to uploading new media files are lost. I would have expected those to remain attached. So basically the problem here is I select this one, then I add another file, save it, and it would bring me back to the widget, but the one I selected before I started uploading is now lost.
Yeah.
And that is basically because in the current state of things, you can only select media and click select, or you add new ones, and then only the added ones are inserted in the widget. Where we want to improve that is in the issue, determine what happens after you added things to the media library. So what we want to do there is once you start adding stuff, and I click save here, that would bring me back to the first screen with that one selected. And I can try to switch real quick to that one. Let's see if I can show that. Oh, where am I? Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay. I hope every cache is now properly cleared. Oh.
Demos. Oh, hey, yes.
Yeah, it should work. Okay, so I add another one. Oh, wait, I should probably have selected one first. So now I select one, then I add another one. And it still remembers you have one selected. I save it, and it should now return me to the media library, and I have both selected.
Yeah, that's expected behavior, what you're showing now, but it feels weird to commit a patch that leaves us in a data loss state, because then it would basically escalate the second of those patches to critical, because without it we can't.
So that's what we wanted to have feedback on, I guess. So can we keep this separate issues, or do we have to merge this stuff together, which probably brings us to new committer and reviewing issues?
Order of them, though, could you not make it so that the select, like adding a new media, doesn't redirect you back to the node form? Because it seems like if we did that first, then once the add new media here patch, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, that second patch to return you back to the library,
Yeah.
that's actually built on top of the first patch.
Okay, and there's no way to just get that functionality on its own. You have to build it on top.
No, because the form would not be here otherwise.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, it has to do with the way it was architected. So yeah, I mean, I think Sean and I talked about this, and I think we're okay escalating the second issue and putting it ahead of like once this first patch is committed, we're okay putting the next one ahead of everything else and landing that as quickly as possible, because you're right that it's kind of shit.
I don't think release managers are going to go for that. I think you're going to have to put them both together and do them at once.
We could do that.
Because it just like we don't ever want to have a state where we're basically, we just acknowledge that it's Drupal and shit happens and people can stop working on anything at any time. So even if you have all the intentions of getting that second issue and you might not, due to whatever reason, code freeze, all the release managers get the flu, whatever, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so we want to keep core in a shippable state at all times. And so that would mean that we can't commit a patch with a known data integrity issue, because it would essentially escalate what would be probably a normal level, annoyance UX thing to all of a sudden a critical bug.
Okay.
That, I think.
Okay, so merging the issues sounds like the only thing we can do here.
I think so. Does that make the patch double the size or something, or is it?
I don't think it makes it double the size. It does make the patch a little more complicated, but like if that's what has to be done, that's fine. Like we can just do that.
Since the second patch is built on top of the first one, we could keep them separated for review purposes and just make sure they only get committed when both are RTBC.
Maybe that's more, to me that feels more complicated than just having everything in one patch. But
okay,
I guess I haven't looked at because then you, as a committer, you have to reconcile the reviews in two different issue discussions and stuff like that, versus if they're all in one place. That seems like it's a little bit easier, with the caveat that I haven't looked at these issues to know what specifically.
And one other thing, because one requested feature was to be able to turn it off, that you return back to the media library. For example, if I have trained editors, and they work with a lot of media, and most of the time they're adding new stuff, then having to go back to the media library every time when they upload a new image is probably annoying as hell.
Yeah, that was going to be my feedback, honestly, is that this watching the workflow that you were just doing there is making me cringe and kind of wish that we still had the two buttons to choose from on the node form. So either add a media directly or select an existing media, because they are very different workflows. Which I know makes you cringe because it's like, this is what I'm fucking working on, but it's like
yeah, well, there were other complexities, let's keep it at that.
Yeah. And the other thing is the add files, like I know it's going to look better in the end because of the mocks. They have this as a nice plus thing that you can drag things into and whatever. But currently, anyway, it's almost like that add files is completely hidden, because like your eye jumps to the pretty pictures down there, like that's the strongest thing. And then you're like, wait, I was trying to add a media. Where do I add a media? And then you kind of eventually float back up to the top and you see this ugly file upload, but it's like mixed in with all of this other text. So it's really actually kind of hard to see it. That was my impression. Is it's like, that looks like a bunch of noise. I'm going to skip over that. Ooh, pretty pictures, neat. And then you have to kind of go back into the noisy part to find where you actually upload a file from this interface. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, well, we have a separate issue to improve that as well.
Yeah. Is there anything we can? And that one I think has gone on for like 200 comments. It's a shit show.
Yeah,
is there anything that can be done to accelerate that one? Maybe.
I think
I
it's
don't know.
ready to go.
That's like literally my favorite issue in the whole queue right now. The one that they
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic about.
No,
that.
I like love that. That one patch, when it's finally in, is going to single-handedly make Drupal's media whole experience seem more modern and friendly. Just that one issue, nothing else. It's like, that's amazing that way. I don't know why that's currently blocked. I have to look.
It's not blocked. It's just pending review.
Oh,
I could take a look at that one and see if we can accelerate that at all.
yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we have to work these two issues together.
Because Christina's unmuted and she actually designed this thing and maybe has some thoughts about what we were saying.
Yeah. So what you were saying, Angie, is that I don't remember who said that now. So anyway, you were saying that after adding a new file, you then go back to this display, and this is adding a new step, which is true. And it's like, come on, we're adding more and more work for people. But what if in the moment probably I'm just saying something that you already discarded for something else, but the moment that you actually add a field, a file, you start, for example, you fill the alternative field and you click next instead of saying next and going back here. What if you have two buttons there, and one is go back to the node form and the other is add more files?
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, Sean, could you click choose files again and just upload a second something? You're saying on this screen, instead of just a save button, there would be basically like CCK, where it's like either save and return to content form or save and add another or something like that.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know the words, but yeah.
I did this exact pattern in web form. I copied it from somewhere. So when you're adding elements, or think about like adding fields, there's a save, and then next to it is save plus add element. And what that does is it doesn't like refresh the whole thing in the background. It keeps cycling through. So yes, some word like save and select, save, and then another button could be save and select more images, or save and insert. The language is tricky.
Yeah, especially since you could have selected stuff on the page before. So what are you actually inserted? It says there's 2 items selected here, plus you're adding a new one. So would that mean that you insert all 3 of them, or only the new one?
I would assume it would insert everything that had been selected to that point, including this one.
Yeah, and also, like, for example, what if I have selected one on the first page, and then I was like, no, I have to upload a new one, and I forget to deselect it.
Then it'll be obvious when you go to the node form, and then you'll just hit the delete button on it.
That's not the best answer. I was going there, but that's not.
I make that mistake all the time on Facebook or whatever, and I'm just like, well, shit, didn't mean to upload that one, and I just delete it.
The common use pattern.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, but maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that actually is super afraid of clicking and saving things. What if I have done something wrong? And I don't know the workflows on huge companies. But anyway, what about obviously for another issue? And I'm not really sure if we actually designed it, or I have the feeling that we already talked about that, is, for example, when you click in the 2 or 5 items selected, you go to an overview of what you have selected or something like that, like a list or something.
Yeah,
like that.
there's another issue for that as well. And,
Okay, cool.
but that would also be tricky because if you click that here, then you haven't saved whatever you have on your screen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me a little nervous.
So that's also very tricky. Maybe we shouldn't even show the number of items selected here because now you're just adding new stuff. I think we just keep it really simple and just make people return to the media library and have site builders give you the ability to make it more flexible by shortening the route to add new items or something. But that's just probably only if you can train your editors, and the default behavior should probably always be that you go back to the media library, because we talked about that as well, and that also enforces the concept that your media is now somewhere in a library where other people can use it.
Yeah, it does have that benefit, I guess. But what was the rationale for removing the? Because one of the basic assumptions I remember you guys came up with was that people add media far more often than they reuse media. Like that was one of your basic assumptions, and I would completely agree with that.
Yeah, so in that case, you would not select anything on the first page.
Yeah. Well, given that, I'm still confused why we don't have 2 buttons on the node form to begin with. It's just like add new media or select existing media. Why did we change away from that pattern?
Because go ahead. No.
It's because we have a lot of different types of media. So one could be a URL, and one could be an address field, and one could be an upload field. And if you
that was it, right?
Yeah. So that was complicated.
So by forcing them to go through the media library, they also are then forced to have selected a type of media to upload.
Yeah. So they select a type, and then they add something new. They go back to the library. They can see what they have selected, and they know that anything they added is now in a library somewhere, and then they continue. So that does introduce an extra step, but it does provide a lot of clarity.
Are you able to bulk upload in that field?
Yes.
Okay, that helps a lot, and that is definitely not clear from the current interface that you can do that. Because it looks like
there is this.
There's probably a tiny sentence that no, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing that says you can put more than one file in that upload box. So it would be useful for people to know that works. Because otherwise it seems like you have to upload these things one at a time and then add alt text and then save it and then click add and then and I would like
drop zone
not Drupal by now if I didn't know that. Yeah, cool. I thought that's how it worked because I swear I've reviewed this before, but yeah.
Would having a drop zone, you think, help that cause?
Yes, because drop zones pretty much always are
multi-upload. Yeah.
So okay, go back to the previous screen, like where you select 3 images, because I do think there's an opportunity. Like the problem is we don't want them to go to this screen. So just if you have the save button, you could have save and insert all selected images. Like I mean, it's a weird pattern, but it's not like people will get used to that. So save would go to the screen that we're looking at, and you could have save and insert selected images, and then that would go back to the node edit form. And we could say save and insert 5 selected images, like all selected images or something that just indicates. I mean, one funny thing is you could list the other selected images here so they see exactly what they've got, but that's tricky.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. I like that idea because then you don't get into the modal opening another modal.
That opens another problem. What if you have a media type where you have actually like 20 fields that need to be filled? So
there's also the problem of if you're displaying fields for things that are already in your media library that you've already selected. It's not clear that you're editing them canonically for everywhere necessarily.
That's true too,
that's why I was saying like have like another screen or another step or something like that. because you realize that you are doing something different. You are overviewing. You are not actually editing it.
I mean, maybe you could do a thing where you show the ones on this screen. You could show the ones that you've selected, just don't show any fields for them. You know, just show their thumbnail, and only the ones that you need to have fields for, namely the new ones that you've just uploaded, are the ones that present fields to you.
Like also selected, colon, and then da-da-da.
Something like that, yeah, and it could just not be on the screen. That's one option.
It's very clear if that. But some people are going to want both patterns. That's the thing. Some people
I really think
they
will. I do. I think that once you've used this screen a couple of times, you're gonna like rip out hairs. And if we make it a site builder distinction, that actually is not great, because it really is an individual content author distinction. It's like, I, Bob, do this fucking thing every single day, and I know what I'm doing, and I don't need to go back to the media library. That's annoying. But I, Susan, have never touched this site before, and Drupal's scary, and so I want to verify every single bloody step of what I do. So it really does kind of indicate we need two buttons here. I guess we kind of bike shed a little bit more on what they're called. That could be a separate issue from this, but I'm just saying, like, watching that demo was just like, I wanted to reach across, just be like, oh my god. Anyway, but yeah, I think it's worth opening an issue about it. This is the risk of bringing things to UX meetings, is when people actually look at the UX, sometimes they have other suggestions. I'm sorry.
So in that determine what to do next issue, it's now a site builder decision, and it probably shouldn't be. Is that what you're saying?
I really think what Christina's suggestion, and having two buttons here on this screen that we're looking at, is a better solution than a site builder setting.
So
what do other people think, though? Because I'm mouthy and have opinions about things.
I think I agree with the idea that it shouldn't be up to the site builder for precisely the reasons you said. My worry about two buttons is the fact that that adds a little bit of cognitive load, which I'm sure you realize. But that being said, I don't really know what else would be a good option here. I don't know if there's any other thing we could possibly do. You know, that would keep it out of the site builder hands and in the hands of the person using the media library, and not have it be a button.
Because if we did it, given the current thing that you're working on, and it's a site builder distinction or decision, what is that decided on a per content type basis, or what is the setting?
It's per it's in the media library widget itself.
So it's per field.
Per field, per form display, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard because I don't know enough about like day-to-day use of media in Drupal to know if that would be sufficient or not.
We're not really going to have a whole lot of data until media libraries and done.
Yeah, I know. It's just yeah.
So as far as like what we can actually do, like what's actionable for us in the next week, should we maybe? I mean, it sounds like we should definitely merge the determine where to go next issue with the show ad form on the media library. And then maybe, do we want to at least just have the buttons? Maybe if we just got the buttons working in a really basic way, and we could demo it to you guys next week and see what you all think.
Sure. And you can label them banana and booger for all we care.
Let's actually do that, Sean.
Yeah, I hate to bring that up because I really don't want to see you throwing out work, but I just think, like, just having witnessed this, some of this stuff makes sense on paper, and some of the stuff when you see it in person, it's like, ooh. So I'm sorry. Does that make you have to throw out a bunch of work if we ask for two buttons here?
No, I think it's relatively easy to add that. Only the thing that worries me is how do you know what else is selected besides these three new items? Yeah,
that is fair. Christina, you don't have any availability to like do a mock-up of what that would look like, do you? It's fine if you don't. I'm just asking for asking purposes.
So exactly what
they're concerned about is, can you X out of here, Sean, again? Sorry. And then go add media. that's interesting. I expected that to take us back to the media library. That was funny. Okay, so you're in here. You select child with blue eyes,
Mhm.
and child looking down, whatever. You, in addition to that, upload a file, which is this one, whatever. In this screen, you're only seeing the file you're uploading. If the button says save and return to media library or save and return to the content form, it's not necessarily obvious to you that what's going to happen. Can you go ahead and hit 1 and save? Pretend that we don't see this screen right here. And instead we, select media, I guess. And instead we just poof, ended up back here again, all of a sudden with 3 images, even though I only saw 1 in that interstitial screen. That's the word. And so a couple of ways that have been suggested to deal with that are, 1, to also include the metadata of the other 2 issues when you're looking at the 3rd one. However, 1, that's confusing because you didn't upload the 2, you only uploaded the 1. 2, you run into problems when every, say that girl with the blue eyes had 37 fields associated with her because she's a particular type of image. That would bloat the form completely. And 3, it's not clear that you're changing them. Like when you change girl with blue eyes metadata, you're changing it for all instances of blue girl metadata on all places in the site. So that's why that one is probably not a good approach. But the 2 of 5 images selected thing, that's way too subtle, especially because oftentimes, like I find every time I've set up a multi-value field, I very rarely ever use the max value. I've always used unlimited because why not? So usually you won't even have, that. But that 2 of 5 selected is very subtle, and it's in the lower right-hand corner where no one's going to ever look realistically. So the idea was like, should we do something like below the metadata? Sorry, Sean, one more time. Can you go to add media? I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm like not getting to micromanage you here. And then just do the upload thing. So on this screen here, that's about to come up.
Exactly. So here,
here.
Show like teasers or small images or whatever is the media together with the other elements that you have selected plus this form.
Yep, that's what we're suggesting. We just have no design for it, and so
cool, no problem.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Awesome, that would be great. You understand the problem that we're trying to solve? Yes,
and actually I think at some point we worked or talked about that. So
yeah, we actually have an issue open for that specifically, and I will dig it up.
If you could send that, it will be great. Otherwise, I can just ping you.
I can find it. Possibly not in this call, but I can find it for you. And I think that should probably stay as a separate issue, just so that the current patch that we're dealing with right now doesn't get way too big.
I completely agree. It's not. This patch I'm talking about would be the one to make a decision on whether to redirect or not. In the patch that you're working on right now with the ad form, the decision's already going to be made, which is redirect back to the media library so you don't lose your shit. So
right.
This would be a later patch that's like, make it so the content author can choose whether to return to the node form or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I still think the button here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that would probably be a good way to go at it. So
I don't want to hold up the ad media one at all, because I know that's holding up other things. But so this would be like basically the 2 issues that are active right now, you kind of combine them. But instead of making it a site builder choice, we basically have to force the redirection to the media library so that we don't lose any data. That's going to be the first patch. The second patch is going to be taking this screen, putting 2 buttons on it to redirect wherever, like content author's choice. And then somehow a magical design will emanate from Christina to make it so that people understand that when they click the save and redirect, that they know that it's actually going to insert 3 images.
Yeah, there's a combination of new and existing. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
do the existing assets need to be fully visible? Because I could almost see a details element, and this, Christina, you'll decide this, but it's like, could it be a details element that says previously select, 6 selected images, and it's a slide out? Because they've looked at the assets, they know what they are. Do they need to see all of that, or they just need to know?
Good point. Maybe we could even have like, I don't know, details, a collapsed details, and you can open it a little bit. I don't know, but that's a good idea.
One of the accessibility feedback issues was like not everybody has the perfect memory to know what they've selected.
Yeah.
So we should probably make that very visual.
Well, it's also confusing though. Like I could go either way on it, I guess.
Yeah,
but
it's good to know that we can at least do that specific thing in a later issue, and let's think about that more first.
Sure, that works.
Okay, that basically took all the time. I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, time.
Yeah, sorry about that. But that was also really helpful. So thank you very much for all your feedback.
I'm good to stay on a few more minutes if other people are, to get at least one more thing in. I don't remember what all was in the list, but
yeah, I can stay a little bit more.
Yeah, I can also stay, but no pressure. Anyone, if you have availability, feel free to.
Yep.
I think I need to jump out.
Sure.
I have to like do life
use
things.
all our time and then leave us. I see how you are.
I'm a terrible person. Anyway, thank you very much, UX gods. For your help.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So, if we can pick the top issue from layouts, what would that be?
I think the one that Emily has actually is stopping work more than the one that I have. So,
all right,
probably Emily's is better.
Okay, so that is the design intuitive affordances for layout builder, issue number 2938182.
Could you paste the link or something like that in the issue or in the Slack?
Yeah.
Ah, yes, this old thing. Oh, wow. There's stuff in here from last time I looked. Nice.
Yeah, so there's a new design posted to the issue, and that hasn't been seen by this team yet. So I just wanted to have that pulled up and hear everyone's thoughts on that one. We went over a previous design that had a grayed out background, but this has more approval from Andrew on accessibility. So curious what everyone thinks on this.
Sounds like there's still accessibility concerns with this, but it's less so than the pseudo-modal thing. That looks great to me. It is using a color, which I know we're not supposed to do, but it's also using a thickness, and color itself is not denoting anything. Like it's not like it's like there's a blue border and then a red border somewhere else. So I feel like we're probably okay on that. And it's not
don't kill me. What if the theme I'm sorry. What if the theme that you're actually editing has a full layout width and you can't actually see the borders on the left and the right? Maybe I'm just saying something super crazy. I don't know.
No,
well, I think we had discussed about other things with these borders and even the stuff on the inside of the layout builder is that we can't even really like know for sure that the borders and stuff aren't going to sort of blend into their front end theme. And I think the nature of Layout Builder and the fact that it's in the front end theme, we can't like take all the work away from a potential theme. So potentially you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, fair point. That's a good point.
And we did talk about, well, that part of the documentation that we think we have to write is probably how to theme for a Layout Builder or something, or sort of like gotchas that you might need to update. I mean, because potentially you could use Layout Builder where there's actually nothing else besides what's in Layout Builder. You could have no regions except the main content region. So, we can't know that, but a theme like that may actually just want to get rid of this border altogether via CSS.
I'm assuming though that the border's not there. You click layout and then suddenly a border appears.
Yes.
And even if you only see the top and the bottom of that border, like in Christina's thing, that's still a visual change. It's like, ooh, something just happened. And one of the reasons we wanted that visual affordance is so that your attention is drawn to where the save and cancel buttons are, and that is along the top, because we're putting them in a weird place relative to where people would expect them for various reasons, toolbar, grumble. But I feel like that solves the problem still, even if you don't see those other outer edges. And if you don't see the outer edges, that's actually fine too, because you're effectively communicating this is the area within which you can do your laying out. Because if you look at the screenshot, or not the screenshot, the mock-up I posted in number 13, a couple of the things above that was my concern, is that, on some sites, that editable region is actually going to be the vast non-majority of what you see on the screen. And it's going to look like a bug that you can't drag stuff around into the non-editable regions. So this would help with that a lot, I think. I don't know. I like it. And I see the concern Christina raised, and I think it's okay. Famous last words.
I feel like the other stuff, it's okay too. I mean, on a design perspective, I maybe would add a little bit of margin above and below the save and cancel buttons. But apart from that, I think it's super clear what you can actually do on each place.
Yay.
Was that an actual yay, or was that a...
Yeah, it's a yay. It's a yay. This has been a tough issue.
Yeah, that's great. And if someone else can also go in and comment to say that this looks good, I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, I can write a comment since I'm the jackass who was like, yeah, I guess you can move this as a table blocker. No, wait, can we do something else first? I'll do it. Sorry, guys.
Thank you.
All right. That's what fit into our meeting today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all.